Yep, one more. Yes, sir. We back. Just different podcast. Take one episode. I can't even think right now. Man. What's the episode? What episode are we on?
We on 68.
68.
Yup.
One of them ones.
Yup.
Yes, sir. Are you ready?
Let's go.
All right, yo, what's up? It's your boy D Starks.
Starks Artist.
You are now tuned in to the Just Different podcast where we talk everything faith, life, and culture. Welcome or welcome back. You feel me? You've been tuning in for a while. We appreciate having everyone. You feel me?
Yeah.
Well, first week of December, last month of the year. How you feeling?
Shoot. The year went by. I don't know. The year. It's about to be a new year, man. I'm excited
For
the new year.
2023.
That's how I'm feeling right now in this moment.
I don't know. 2023 just seems interesting.
I mean, in what way?
I don't know. It's just like this year, I feel like, I don't know. I feel like everything's been just off, hasn't been calibrated since 2020.
Okay.
It's crazy that we're 3 years removed from that.
That is crazy to think about. It hasn't 3 years.
That's what I've been thinking about a lot. Yeah.
Dang. It didn't feel like that long ago.
I'm saying. Then we got, well, of course, you know, Christmas and things. We still,
Right.
I mean, by the time this drops, we definitely probably don't have our tree up at all. I don't think.
We won't. We won't have it up.
What do you want for Christmas? I think I did ask you this.
Oh, as a gift?
Yeah.
Man. I thought you just sprung that on me out of nowhere. I don't know. I don't really have anything on the top of my head.
That's what I was thinking. I don't
really
know.
know.
I don't want anything this year. I don't
really.
think.
I mean, I want a good meal. I'll be happy with that.
I feel like I haven't really wanted anything for a while. Like when this time was coming around, like dang, like I need this or want this.
Last time since like middle school, I haven't really.
What's the best gift you've ever gotten?
For Christmas or just in general?
No, for Christmas.
For Christmas. I think I got an Xbox One Christmas. That was cool.
Xbox One.
Xbox.
It wasn't you didn't get an Xbox.
It was an
One.
Xbox. It was Xbox in general. I think it was a 360. I got an Xbox for Christmas back in the day.
I guess we got an Xbox for Christmas, so.
But you weren't on it for real.
I forgot. Yeah, you were a gaming fiend. Yeah,
That was a cool gift. I was happy with that.
The best gift I got was that guitar I got that one year.
No, bro. I don't even know why you said that. Why did you just say that?
No, it really was because
Let the people know what you did with the guitar.
No. I'm gonna give the backstory. So because there was a time, I guess at the beginning of the year, that I had wanted to start playing an instrument. I had been talking about it forever. Then I had decided, you know what, I think the guitar, like the electric guitar, would be dope to like learn. And I kept telling my parents about it with no really intention with it going anywhere. Then on Christmas Day, like kind of surprised me. I kind of would like, you know, drop little hints like, yo, you should get me one. Yeah. I didn't think they really would. And they got me one. It was like nice.
It was real
extremely nice. And yeah, I mean, I was hyped on day of. I got it. And, you know, I played around with it for a little bit with the little speaker I got. You feel me? And then I never played again.
Nah, man.
I was like,
that was crazy.
It collected dust. I think they returned it. I'm not gonna lie to you.
Yeah.
I think they returned it and got their money back.
It went missing, so they probably returned it, and it was probably expensive. So
I mean, I felt like him for that day though. Like I really
bro
felt like
played it for a few days and said, "I'm good, bro."
Nah, it was dope.
You stay safe though.
It was a good gift though.
It was.
But no. Let's go ahead and get into it. I don't know. One of the biggest, I won't necessarily say questions we get, but I think a lot of people have, like, particularly like, you know, teens and like young adults, like going through like, you know, ending high school, going through college, is like, what is like my purpose, or like what does the future like hold for me? I think that's one of the biggest questions people usually always asking in their head, and like some people like worry about, you know, just kind of like trying to figure out what are the next steps in my life and what does God want me to do, or what was I created to do and be a part of. And, you know, a lot of the times the answer to that question, when people ask like, okay, like, yo, what are you going to major in, or like, what are you going to do after you graduate, or what is your 5-year, 10-year plan? It's just like, I don't know. And I think that, you know, it's important to have these conversations to like understand what it looks like navigating the future and the uncertainty of it, and trying to take those steps to figure out, okay, what does God really want me to be doing in different seasons of my life, and how do I really find that out, and even like, you know, understand how to like deal with like those spaces of like, dang, I not knowing completely and still trusting him anyway. So yeah, that's what we're gonna be talking about today. I felt like it was like, you know, pretty timely, just going
Most
into
definitely.
like 2023. You know what I'm saying? Like new year, trying to
transition.
right back, like setting like goals and whatever next year looks like for you. And it's just like, dang, sometimes it really is like you looking at it, it's like, yo, I don't know.
I don't know.
And what do you do whenever you're in that place type of thing?
Yeah, exactly. I was watching a sermon the other day. I feel like everything's always so timely. Like every time we have an episode about something, I was like just reading something or just watching something. But I was watching the sermon, and the preacher, he said, your future is a memory to God. And I had to sit on this for a second. I was like, dang, like that's kind of a bar. Like your future is a memory to God. And that's even like how like the phenomenon of like, what's it called? Deja vu. The phenomenon of deja vu. Like that explains it, because it's like in those moments, it's like your spirit saying like, I've been here before. Like I felt this before. So that's how I've always like, when I experienced that, that's what I always equated it to. And that's always so reassuring for me. And I kind of look at it in that sense like a tour guide. Like if you ever go to a new city and, you know, you're completely unfamiliar with it, never even traveled there, never even heard about it. It's like when you usually like get a tour guide, or you have like a tour of the city, depending on where you're at, obviously, but you'll have a tour guide and they know, right? They know the city, they know the ins and outs, they've been there, they've seen the streets. So it's like you're less anxious, because when you're with this tour guide, although you have no idea where you're going in the city or how to get to places, like the tour guide knows. And God is the tour guide, you know what I mean? In your life, even though you might not know exactly where you're going or the terrain or what it looks like, God is the tour guide of life. So for me, something that's always kept me at peace is knowing that. So it's like even though I don't know, I'm less anxious knowing I'm following someone who does, right? So God, your future is a memory to God. That's something that always keeps me at peace, because I think there's a lot of fear that comes along with it when you don't really know. But I think if you know God knows, it's like, okay, cool, I'm set.
Yeah, because I think we probably just rely too much. I think what is mentioned a lot, particularly when you're just walking out your relationship with God, is like our own strength, our own wisdom, our own capacity or perspective to see things. And so sometimes we can get lost in that of like just the idea that we don't have the answers or the complete vision or picture of what it is. Therefore, like it's not there at all.
Right.
And so like just kind of shifting your perspective and focus on the fact of like, okay, although I may be uncertain, you know, or just not completely aware of what's next, there's someone who is.
Most definitely.
And then putting it on him, putting the weight on him, like we always say.
Yeah, exactly.
And when it comes to thinking about like the future, what's next and like purpose, one of the biggest things that I had to learn is not being passive in my pursuit of the future.
Okay.
Not being passive in my pursuit of the future. And just the idea of like not leaving everything up to God and just being completely inactive on my end.
Right.
Because sometimes whenever I really like first step into my relationship with God, I was in this mode of like, oh, so it's gonna fall out of the sky, like all the provision, the direction, the steps that I'm gonna take while I'm just gonna like sit here idly waiting for it to kind of like just drop out of heaven and just like have some big epiphany revelation one day, and not realizing that which we talked about, I think it was like earlier this year, kind of coming full circle with when we talked about dreaming with God. Yeah, but it's the fact that you also have to like in a lot of ways partner with him as well. Like there's also like a lot of like the like steps on our end that we need to take in order for God to like also give that provision that we need. And so it's not just like us just standing around and like just sitting here and like, you know, going through the motions of like doing like the Christian thing, right? But also being very like I said, like active in our pursuit when it comes to, okay, like trying things, like when it comes to like just practically speaking, trying different things out.
Exactly.
Right. Like, okay, like, okay, I see I have a passion maybe in this area. There's an interest that, okay, yeah, like this subject sparks my interest or like this industry or okay, this particular field. Now let me go and like, you know, pursue this in some capacity, take steps in this direction and see where it leads me or God wants to take me from there. And not just always like looking at trying to find from some sign out of the sky of like, yo, this is it. Yeah,
most definitely. That was a big key for me. That was a lesson I had to learn. And I've been continuing to learn, just like your relationship with God, it's a two-way street. And he's really been highlighting to me very recently, like living intentionally, like with everything, literally everything. Like living intentionally, like if you're trying to, I guess with this conversation, like you were talking about, like if you're trying to figure something out, like be intentional about, okay, what can I do, right? I understand, like I'm leaving it all in God's hands, but there's something that I can do in the situation. So what is that? And getting to what that is. So, yeah, that's a good point. And one more thing that I feel like I've noticed in terms of like the uncertainty of future, and I guess more specifically with making choices about the future, is it's like this process of elimination. What I mean by that is like, so I look at it like when you go to certain restaurants and you feel like they got like a huge menu, like Bubba's, like this is a restaurant where we're at, like they got everything on the menu, everything you can imagine, bro, like 4 different pages. And I feel
That's
like
OD.
It really is. They got everything. They got wings,
It's
pizza,
OD.
they got steak, they got a whole bunch, they got everything, right? So I think you can get overwhelmed when you have a lot of choices. But I think in those circumstances, what I try to do is focus on, okay, I know what I don't want. Like, let's start there. Like, I might not know exactly what I want or what that looks like, but okay, I know what I don't want. And let me stay away from those pages on the menu. And I feel like it's the same when you're faced with different choices in life. It's like, I might not know if this is exactly where I need to be, but I know I don't need to be over there. And I think when you do that and you kind of eliminate certain options, it makes it a lot easier and dials it down to like help you figure out where you do need to be in a sense. So it's just about, I think recognizing where you shouldn't be is just as big of a step as knowing the direction. I think those are the 2 biggest components of making a choice, but I think that's the part that's slept on. We put a lot of emphasis on, I need to know where I'm going, but I mean, you also need to know what you need to stay away from as well. So if you don't have one, focus on the other in a sense. So it's like, if I don't know where I'm going, let me kind of figure out where I don't need to be. So that's a big thing for me. Those 2 components are what make a choice. So focusing on that.
Yeah, I think that's a bit like, that's big when it comes to like this whole like decision aspect of having like multiple choices like that you can choose from, and kind of like discerning that. And I think, because I was going to mention something like that, and it's the fact that like people usually don't always take enough time to seek God for like his plan. And so, you know, of course, like I mentioned earlier, like there's a part that we do have to play, but there's a balance in that ideal of like, okay, like there's steps, you know, I'm going to take, I know I need to take, but also ultimately like leaning on him for his direction and what that looks like after I take these steps. It's like, okay, like I've gone in this direction, yo, what is the next move from here? And so, because sometimes we can have just an idea in our mind of what we want our future to look like, we want our company, our business, our degree to take us, or whatever, like, you know, whatever that path looks like for us and our own desires. And then we'll like take those to God and try to get confirmation for that, rather than getting the idea from him and just like, you know what I mean?
That makes sense. Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Yeah.
And so, because you have to realize, and this is what I call big boy Christianity. Because whenever I found this out, this really changed everything for me. And it's the fact that like every good idea isn't a God idea. And like, just because it's something I can do doesn't mean it's something that I'm called to do. And sometimes you can confuse like what you're good at with something you're purposed to do.
Right.
And that's what Jordan was talking about when it comes to like different decisions. And that's what makes it like extremely tricky sometimes, because like we can have something that you may have like a strength in, or some type of like talent or a knack for, but now that may not be the thing God is really calling you to like walk into and like give your time and your priority to. And so it's important for us to like really seek that discernment from him, because like you can like you said, you can just get like, okay, this is a thing that I'm really good at, and you can run with that in your own mind, like, okay, like, yo, like I'm good in this area of media, so I'm just gonna go in this direction and keep going. And then never really seek God for, okay, like, yeah, you may have a strength here, but a part of that strength was really for me to take you in this direction. Right. But you went off on your own ideal and your plan and your ways for you to like, you know, go there.
Exactly.
So I think it's also a part of like this, you know, of uncertainty of the future, of finding direction, of like really seeking him with like a pure heart, I guess is what I'm really trying to say, with no ulterior motives, like really trying to block your judgment of like what you really need to do. Because I think I fall into that sometimes, because I have an idea of, because I got a lot of good ideas, particularly when it even comes to like the podcast and things like that. I'm like, yo, this is the direction I want to take it in, the direction that I want to do, the direction that I want it to look like, the goals I want it to reach and things like that. But, you know, where is God in that? You know, like where have I consulted him about that and really bring those things to him for him to adjust it and refine it to like, you know what, that sounds good, but this is what I have in mind. And then going from there.
Yeah, it reminds me of Proverbs 16:9. It says like, in their hearts humans plan their course, but the Lord establishes their steps. You know, and the word also talks about how like the heart is deceiving above all else. So I think we have these ideas in our hearts of like what we want to do, but like you said, it's like making sure we recalibrate. Okay, like God, what do you want to do though? Since my steps are ordered, like highlight those steps to me. I'll go where you lead, type of thing. That's big. That's a huge part of like making decisions for your future. And I dealt with this conversation about like the uncertainty of the future and not knowing. I dealt with this heavily my senior year of high school. Like, why you he already knows what I'm about to talk about. He started laughing. So my senior year of high school, like, it's a very stressful time, right? Because everyone's like going off to colleges, and like that's a huge like transition of figuring out like, okay, what's the next step after I get out of high school? And everyone else was like going off to college and everything, and I didn't really know what I wanted to do. So I was like, I should just go to the military. That was like the only option. And what I got from that, something that God highlighted to me through that process of me going through that, was the enemy's greatest illusion that adds to the stress of you not knowing is making it seem like everyone else does. So in that moment where I was at, when I was seeing everyone, you know, committing in different colleges and going here and going there, it seemed as if they had it all figured out. Like their whole life plan was like down packed. And I'm sitting here like, I really don't know. Right. So that made it even more stressful for me when I saw everyone else and it appeared that they were doing all these things and I was doing nothing. So it kind of forced me into making a decision. Right. It was like I was trying to find my purpose, but but in doing that, I was stepping out of it. So I think sometimes it's the illusion that everyone else has something going on or that they have it figured out. Right. And it was as if I was like, I was like gauging my failure based off of like someone's success that was like fabricated. It wasn't even like real. It was an illusion. Like it's not what it seemed, but I was like, dang, I'm a failure because they seem successful. You know what I mean? So that's something else you have to watch for, that the enemy will try to like torment your mind with that. It's like, oh, they got it figured out over there. They know what they're doing. And you're here. Like, what are you doing? Like, they're the same age as you. So that was big for me. It's like tearing down that stronghold and that illusion that everyone else knew what they were doing. And like just kind of just sitting at peace with like God's timing and figuring out like what I wanted to do. So taking my pace. But yeah.
Yeah. I think that's one thing that I've had to learn. You know, there's a lot of like cliches that you hear growing up from like adults, whether that be like your parents, teachers, some like people like in some position of authority in your life. And one thing that I would hear, I don't think they necessarily say to me, but it's the fact that like no one really has it figured out.
Right.
Like no one really knows like what's going on or what the next steps are to what they're doing. And I always thought that was just like, you know, fallacy. I'm like, okay,
that
like
just sounds
big
good.
like y'all sound good.
Yeah.
Like y'all are like, y'all got like these vision boards, these goals, you're planning out X, Y, and Z, you got bills, you got a job. I'm sure you have something in your mind of like what's next and what's going on. Then of course, like as you get older, you're walking out yourself, and then you start, start noticing it like in your own life, and then you're just seeing. I think, of course, for me, it was the biggest thing was like seeing my parents go through it, and then like other adults, and you're like, wow, like they really don't know either. They really don't. Like they really don't know either. And so that's a good point, because I would get wrapped up in that as well. Just the whole like comparison aspect of like, dang, like I mean they going Ivy League, like. Man. They bro, it's junior year. They already like it's sophomore year. They already studying for the SAT. You feel what I'm saying? Like, they already doing like community service work and internships. Like, they must really got a plan.
They must know.
They must really got a plan. But you kind of realize that everyone's really just walking out step by step and just kind of like molding that path as they go, rather than really having a concrete definition of it. And I think that goes perfect into the point that I wanted to mention, is the fact that I've come to learn how to be uncomfortable in uncertainty. Okay. And just trusting God anyway. Because I don't necessarily think I'm always supposed to know or have it all like revealed to me in one setting and one particular time frame, right? I think it just happens as I continue to walk it out and trust in him, right? Like so yeah, it's just like understanding, okay, like even if I don't know, that's not a signal of my lack of faith in God or me being further from him, or me not in a position of life where I'm doing the right things, if that makes sense, right? Because I think sometimes for me it was just like, dang, I don't really have a true kind of like clear picture of what my future is or like what that's going to look like, and I felt that was a reflection of what I was doing wrong, or what I wasn't doing right, or I was failing in some area, or I wasn't as close to God, or I wasn't hearing from him as clearly as I should have been.
Right.
And I don't, and you know, I've come to realize that isn't always really the case. Sometimes you can be walking righteously, doing what you need to do, disciplined, and it still not always be clear yet. Right. But as you continue to like take more steps, right, in obedience, it's when it really starts to reveal itself. And so I think that being comfortable in that and not allowing these moments of uncertainty to cause me to get in these like to get in a heavy emotion of just anxiety and then worry and completely off kilter, is something that a big lesson I've had to learn, that it's okay in the that space of I don't know.
Yeah, and sometimes the way I look at that is like, because you were talking about how sometimes you just feel like you're not supposed to know certain things.
Yeah.
And I feel like sometimes like if I did know certain things, I would just like mess it up, or like something would happen to where like I just wouldn't be ready for it. So like in a sense, it's like, it's not that you're not stewarding what you have now in a bad way, but it's just like you're not ready to steward what he has yet. I think that's really what it is. So I think it's just shifting your mindset. Like, I'm not necessarily doing anything wrong. It's just I'm not in a position where I can handle this piece of information or that direction or whatever the case may be. But yeah, no, that was just shifting that mindset. And also the piece about being comfortable in the uncertainty, that was big for me too. And something that practically helped me do that was just looking at things on a more like micro level, instead of, because you look at it like, oh, this is my life, what is my purpose, what am I supposed to be doing? For the most part, that's how a lot of people think. And I feel like when you tackle it like that, it's very overwhelming, right? And that's where all the stress comes in, from the uncertainty. But I look at it more like a day by day thing. Like there's a purpose in this day. So let me try to pinpoint and kind of focus on that first before I try to get to all of that. Cause I think it all add up. Like days turn into months, days turn into weeks, weeks turn into months, and then months turn into lifetimes. So I think once you start just focusing on what what this looks like, the present, right? Once you focus on this day, it'll all add up, and eventually God will start to reveal more pieces and more pieces and more pieces. So that's what I do. That helps me a lot. And that's a constant reminder, because sometimes I get out of line and start stressing about 25 years from now, and God's like, oh, hold on, let's just focus on this day by day. Like, what are you doing today? So yeah, looking at a more micro level instead of like
just purpose. Yeah, purpose in everything. Purpose in every day, no matter what that looks like and whatever season it is. Because like there's like obviously like seasons in which like life like takes you through, right? Mm-hmm. And the whole idea and aspect of purpose is actually something that isn't as like simple as we're like in the terms that we're talking about it, but you know what I mean? Like, I think you can have like a purpose and that manifests in different ways in different seasons. Yeah. Right. So for example, like I remember, I think I was listening or saw this video or clip of Tasha Cobbs. She was speaking, and she was basically talking about how like at one point in her life, I think maybe a manager at some store. Okay. I can't remember what particular store she was talking about, but in that season or in that moment of her being in that spot or that occupation, in that position, she was very confused on why it looked like this. knowing where God was taking her, knowing, you know what I mean, what he had revealed to her and what her future was going to be. It was like, yo, like, why am I here? Very like just unsure of like, okay, how is this even develop me or pushing me toward where I need to be? And then of course, like, lo and behold, I think like I can't remember exactly what she's doing now, but that moment or season of her being a manager at that position prepared her, right, and gave her the tools, the skills that she needed in order to be successful in like where she's at right now, running like whatever she does. And I think that like it just goes back to what you said of like finding the purpose in like every single day, right, and then that leading to something like that'll be greater at one point, and not just like neglecting the things you may seem as more mundane right now, like when it comes to like just sticking to a schedule, being disciplined in like your study at school, right, like, you know, like whatever that looks like. Okay, showing up to work on time, like being like a good employee, like being a good coworker in whatever space or field you may be in right now, like, you know, being very intentional about these things, finding purpose in it, and then like even though it may not be revealed now, there'll be something that could possibly come, like, you know, come out of that like in the future. And even outside of that, I think it gets deeper when you think about finding purpose independent of your work, right? Like, and I think that's really where it starts, because when we have this conversation about like, okay, like, yo, what does the future hold and what's next? I think it's about like, yo, like who, like just come an issue of like identity and like who you are like first. So it's like, I think we get so wrapped up in, oh, like, yo, like I have to be doing something. Like it has to be like, I'm always like active and like having my hands in something. And sometimes this is a part of being, like becoming rather, right? Becoming first, and then everything else will follow, right? Like, okay, like my purpose today is to work on my patience with this individual. It's to work on my discipline in this area. It's to work on my love. It's to work on my prayer life, or making sure I'm staying like in my word, and finding purpose in these things of like becoming. And then like obviously, like you mentioned earlier, like, yo, you become this person, and then these seasons now unlock from that process of you doing that.
Yeah, no, that's a real fire point, because now that I'm thinking about it, anytime someone asks you, okay, like what does it look like 5 years from now? Your mind automatically always goes to something that you're doing instead of someone you are, if that makes sense. It always goes to, oh, 5 years from now looks like, okay, I guess this amount of people listening, or like I have this job, or whatever the case may be, instead of like, okay, I don't know, instead of just the type of person you are, you know, or like 5 years from now I see myself being more patient, or, you know what I mean, stuff like that. So that's a good point. We always equate it and kind of like confuse the two, like what you do and like who you are. But
I think it's like what you do will come as you step into who you really are. I think that was like, I'm glad you said that. It's really more of my point of like, okay, like that whole aspect of when it comes to like that refinement process of self-development, I think it's really underrated when we're talking about purpose and the future, right? Because the future comes like I think I've said it before, it's like the forest isn't the head of the tree, it's in the tree. Right. And so like the future is something that like it will like it finds you in a way.
That makes sense. It finds you
as you become the person who handles what that season will look like. Exactly. And so shifting your focus even to that of like, but going back to what you said, the little things, purpose in the little things, of the everyday, not overlooking those things, because that's something that I had a habit of. And then when I look at like looking back at it with everything, I think I feel like, I don't know if I mentioned this on the podcast before. I think I mentioned it a few times. Like when I look back just in my entire life of like the things that I was in, whether that be whenever my time in college, what we did in high school, like with the YouTube channel. Right. Whenever I was younger, I'd be on the first, like I was in the, you know, the aisle, first aisle or first pew in the church, and I was literally writing sermons then. Like, you know, all of that was like, you know, a part of like where I was going to be now.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But it was only going to happen if I found like real purpose. I was really engaged and tapped into like intentional about making these things like excellent and working in them. And so I think that's what was a catalyst for all of it.
Yeah, I heard it here first. That's how Just Different came to be. It was day by day. I heard it here first.
Would you got anything else for the people though?
Just focusing on highlighting something I already said, but just focusing on what you do know, not putting so much weight on the areas where like there's gray and you don't really have specifics, but kind of like I said, process of elimination. Like I might not know this, but I do know this, and let's work from there, right? And walk with God in that. So where you're placing your focus and not getting caught up in the comparison of, you know, what other people are doing as well. That's very big with the whole conversation that we're talking about. But yeah, that's just what I want to lead the people on. That's a big highlight for me.
Yeah. Don't be passive in the pursuit of the future. I think it's the biggest takeaway for me, to be honest. Like what, like you gotta walk with God too.
Right.
You feel what I'm saying? Like you got
right.
Like this is a walk, and
you gotta walk
one,
too.
and he's not the one doing all the work. You have to walk as well.
It's not a piggyback ride, gang. You walk in too.
You have to walk too. Yep. So yeah, I like that. You gotta walk too. That could be a title. But anyways, like man. Hope this blesses y'all as usual. Yeah. Hope y'all have an amazing week. Good start to the month into 2022. Let's get it. But as always, stay you,
stay real,
and stay humble. We'll catch y'all next week. Much love.